Most people are introduced to astrology when they learn what their sun sign is, because it correlates with the day of the year you were born, so it's pretty easy to look up. Some people strongly identify with their sign, while others might read descriptions and feel like the information is kind of off. It's best to not analyze your sun sign in isolation because there's so much more going on in your birth chart. Astrology is a symbolic and technical field, and it can be confusing to understand the difference among the planets, signs, houses, and so on. I remember when I first started studying astrology, the charts looked like pizzas with too many toppings. Astrology is a language, and like any language, it can take some time to gain fluency. If you don't have a copy of your birth chart, you can easily calculate one for free on my website under horoscopes. So now I'd like to introduce the 4 main elements in a birth chart: the planets, signs, houses, and aspects. I'll use the chart of David Bowie to show you the difference among them. There are 10 planets in modern astrology, and they're represented by these sigils. Then there are 12 signs in the zodiac, which is the path that the planets move across the sky. Then there are the houses, which show you the areas of life where the planets are active, and they each have their own sign. And finally, the aspects are the geometric relationships between the planets. Every chart will have all 10 planets in it because you can't be born on a day where one of the planets is missing from the sky. Not every house will have a planet in it though. Since there are 12 houses and only 10 planets, that would be impossible anyway. If you have an empty house in your birth chart, then we look at the house's sign to figure out what's going on in that part of your life. Every sign has a special relationship with the planet called a rulership, so we analyze the house's ruling planet to learn more about what's going on in that area of your life. A common analogy for understanding the difference among the planets, signs, houses, and aspects is a theatrical production. The planets are the actors, and they're represented by archetypal characters. Venus, the planet of beauty, could be the pretty star. Mars, the planet of action and desire, could play the hero. The signs are costumes that the actors wear, and some of these costumes fit better than others in expressing the planet's role. This is the special relationship I just mentioned called rulership. For example, Mars, the hero, has to fight and survive, so he could play his role best in something like a suit of armor. That would be Aries, the warrior sign. Mars might have a more challenging time if he were wearing a costume that didn't fit his role. Let's say Mars was in a tuxedo. That would be the stylish sign Libra. That costume wouldn't suit the hero so well because he needs the protection of armor to fight. Now, many charts, including my own, have planets which are in signs that don't fit right, though there are ways of making that irregular fit work for you. Continuing with our theater analogy, the houses are sets on which the actors perform. For example, one set could be an office. Let's say that's the 10th house, which represents career. Or maybe another set could be a casino, which is the 5th house since it represents entertainment. The aspects are like scripts between the actors. Let's say there was an easy and harmonious trine between Mars and Venus. Then maybe that script would show them falling in love. Or let's say there's a challenging aspect between Mars and Venus, such as an opposition. Then they may have a script that shows them arguing. So now I'd like to talk about what easy versus challenging aspects mean on a practical level. Most charts have some easy aspects like sextiles and trines, and some hard aspects like squares and oppositions. A conjunction, which means that 2 planets are right next to each other, can be easy or hard depending on the planets involved. Now, is it better to have more easy aspects than hard aspects? Not from my experience. Hard aspects express themselves as challenges in our lives, but a challenge is not an inherently bad thing. In fact, the most successful people in the world can have lots of challenging aspects in their charts. Sometimes having only easy aspects means that there's not enough motivation to accomplish anything significant. A challenging aspect is like the grit in an oyster. It may cause some stress and irritation, but you can't make a pearl without it. So don't be freaked out by the challenging aspects in your chart. Be open to what they can reveal to you so that you can navigate your life more effectively. I use traditional astrology to judge a planet's strength in your chart. Planets that are in their own sign, like the costume that fits right, are naturally strong. However, there are other ways a planet can be strong. For example, planets which are close to angles will gain strength despite what sign they're in. Think of strength like a flowing aspect. It can be helpful to have in life, but it doesn't mean that you're going to use that energy effectively. How it works out is completely up to you and the choices that you make. The way I personally practice sees every placement as having a higher and lower manifestation. That includes both the hard and easy ones. Even if you have a good fitting placement or lots of trines in your chart, doesn't mean that you're going to make the best use of them. And of course, there are ways of making an irregular fitting placement or a hard aspect work well for you. Oftentimes, when I'm consulting with older clients, they'll tell me that they express the lower manifestation of their chart more when they were younger than they do now. That's because we evolve over time, and people naturally learn more about themselves when they've worked through life's challenges. Every sign belongs to one of 4 elements, and these categories can be helpful to understand a sign's essence. The 4 elements are fire, which are the signs Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius; air, which are the signs Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius; water, which are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces; and earth, which are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Now here's a trick. If you tally up all the elements in your chart, you'll have an overall concentration of a certain element. Then, when you see which element you have most, you can get a general impression of your personality before diving deeper with more astrology. Let's look more at the elements. Planets in the fire signs express themselves in the realm of spirit. In their higher manifestation, the fire signs can be inspirational, warm, energetic, enthusiastic, and assertive, though in their lower manifestation, they can also be angry, impulsive, and self-centered. Planets that are in air signs express themselves in the realm of intellect. They're social, conversational, fair-minded, and humanitarian, but they can also be cold, indecisive, and detached. Planets in water live in the realm of emotions. They can be intuitive, sensitive, supportive, and compassionate, though they can also be weepy, subjective, clingy, and bad with boundaries. And planets in the earth signs express themselves in the material realm. They can be realistic, practical, sensual, and reliable, but they can also be cautious, rigid, miserly, and greedy. So let's say you have an Aquarius sun, which is an air sign, so it's more detached because it emphasizes intellect over feelings. But let's say the rest of your planets are in water signs, which is the emotional element. Then your personal astrological arrangement could add an interesting contrast to the standard Aquarian aloofness. That might be why you don't entirely relate to its generic sun sign description. Astrology can be a rather complex inventory for understanding our personality, because astrology is the most cosmically externalized reflection of what's going on inside of you. When first reading an astrology chart, I like to analyze the sun, moon, and rising, which are the foundational trifecta of the personality. This is the horizon line of the chart. Everything above it was up in the sky when you were born, and everything below it was underneath the Earth's surface, so it was below your feet. If the sun is above the horizon in your chart, then you were born in the daytime, and traditionally, daytime charts emphasize the planets Sun, Saturn, and Jupiter. If the sun is below the horizon, then you were born at night, and the planets Moon, Mars, and Venus will be more influential in your chart. The rising, also known as the ascendant, is the constellation to the east of the horizon line. In astrology, the east is to the left of the chart, and the west is to the right, which is flipped from how we're used to seeing it on a map. The rising describes how you immediately come off to other people, like a mask that you wear for the rest of the world. If we use the metaphor of a building to understand the birth chart, the rising would be like the facade of the building. It's what others can easily see about you, though it doesn't reveal the entire story of who you are. Just as the facade of a building is a real part of the building, though there can be a lot more going on inside than what you can initially see. The sun represents how you identify. It's an external and outward expression of who you are. The sun is the king or queen of our solar system because it determines the orbits of all the other planets through its gravitational pull. In astrology, the sun is like the king or queen of your chart because it can explain why and how you make decisions and what your personal purpose is. The moon, by contrast, is your emotional, personal, and inner world. It's the less conscious side of our personality because it's associated with our habits and reactions. Understanding your moon placement can help you understand what you need to feel emotionally well balanced. The moon can also tell us more about what type of home would suit you best and what your family is like. Many astrologers use so-called predictive techniques like transits and progressions. Transits describe how the current planetary positions interact with your fixed birth chart, thereby activating certain areas of your life. Progressions describe how your birth chart has cosmically unfolded in the days and weeks after you were born, where a day after you were born correlates with 1 year of your life now. I don't think of transits and progressions as predictions, but more like collaborations among you, your relationships, and your evolving circumstances. My personal view is that the human experience is a dynamic interplay among free will, destiny, and chaos. I use these so-called predictive techniques to give us insights into the deeper meaning of a particular experience or phase of development in your life. Transits and progressions help us explore what is emerging in yourself through a current issue you're facing, as well as the potential next step in your self-actualization. Astrology can't account for every random event that enters your life, though if you're dealing with an issue, these techniques can give us insights into how you're affected by your current challenges so that we can make better decisions for dealing with them.